Welcome to Latino Stories. If you love jaw-dropping HOA drama, you're in the right place. From corrupt board members to outrageous neighborhood disputes, we expose the wildest HOA scandals. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. Now, let's dive into today's crazy HOA tale.
Hey guys, welcome back to more Karen stories. In this video, I bought an abandoned tiny house, but an awful Karen kept calling the police on me and ended up suing me. Let's dive right into the story. The title story starts like this. I live in a state where buying a house for an average person seems nearly impossible. The ideal thing would either be to move or accept that I'm gonna be living in an apartment for the rest of my life. And I don't hate the space an apartment has, I do hate rent increases and other things associated with it though. Either this is a newer thing or just something I learned a couple years ago, but there are things called tiny homes. Like a plot for a property being much smaller and only being able to fit a small house that's maybe the size of 2 sheds or something. I get how the idea of that can be totally claustrophobic for some people, but I felt like it was made for me. I don't really attach myself to a lot of things, so I just need the bare essentials in order to function. A bed, my computer, some clothing, a place to shower, and a place to make food. The idea of it all being crammed together did not scare me, and the more I looked into tiny homes, the more I wanted them. They are not the most common thing to find and instead mostly get built after a very small plot of empty land is purchased. I felt like I hit the jackpot when I found one for sale by total accident. I was not even looking for one specifically, but still looking more into them when I just got directed to a website about buying, and it was there. It turned out that the people living there managed to get foreclosed and the tiny home, which had virtually no property, was not that easy to sell. And when I went to go and check out the neighborhood that it was in, I think I got a bit of an idea why. It seemed like every single block had 1 or 2 of these microplots with a tiny house in it. Almost all of them were being paid for and used by the people that lived next door to it. As a way to have a separate place for relaxing or letting their teenager just have their own place, but not really. A few had actual owners like I was interested in, and the area seemed nice. It was clear that these tiny houses were still a bit of an experimental thing, for a fraction of the cost of a real house, though it was worth it to me. The problem started after I bought the house and tried to move into it. There were things in the home and I tried to contact the real estate company that was selling it and asking if nobody cleared it out after the foreclosure. They told me that when they examined it afterwards it was empty and essentially looked abandoned. But now it was filled with things and they couldn't help me do anything about it. Some say there are 2 types of people in a situation like this, fight or flight personalities. I guess a fight would be to find the owner of the things or just start clearing things out and moving my stuff in. While a flight would just maybe be give up or think it was some sign to not live there. I apparently was not born with either instinct. Instead, I was the stand there staring like an idiot type, waiting to see if something would magically change kind of person. I don't know how long I would have been left before doing something, but I wouldn't get to find out as I was approached by a woman. I don't like to judge people on first seeing them, but I had a bad feeling about her. She reeked of heavy perfume, had a long craning neck, and her lips looked like she ate a lemon the entire time we were talking. I'll name her Karen, as it only took one interaction for me to realize the kind of person she was, and that it was not somebody I was interested in speaking to again. Karen, what are you doing here? We don't allow people coming and selling things. Me, I'm not selling anything. I bought this house actually, and I'm just a bit confused because there are things inside. Karen, of course there are things inside. This is my storage house. You better not try to steal or even touch any of my things. Me, I think there's been a mistake. I just bought this property and the house on it. It's meant to be empty. Karen, are you deaf or just stupid? I already said that this is mine. I didn't sell it to anybody, so you better leave before we have a problem. I wanted to try and find some way aside from a piece of paper showing her that the house was mine. Since she disregarded my paperwork as all being fake, I was given a key that was meant to work, but it looked like the original door lock had been destroyed and replaced with a padlock instead. I did not have anywhere to take my stuff and go to, which seemed to just make Karen angry. Other people outside seemed curious and were watching us. This just made her even angrier and started yelling that I was trespassing and now disturbing the peace. I was willing to keep things civil at first, thinking she was just confused, but it was obvious she was an entitled Karen and just assumed ownership of the house I bought. I could have easily called the police on her, but didn't have to because she was the one calling the police on me. They arrived and she was able to show with her license where she lived and that the tiny house was filled with her things. My license had not been updated yet, and they seemed a little unsure what to do with my deed paperwork. It did not help that Karen was claiming that it was part of her property and a storage shed, not a house. The police asked if I could stay anywhere else because Karen was trying to press charges, and if I left willingly, it could avoid me getting arrested. So I went and stayed at a motel with them, telling me to get my license changed and make sure the deed gets filed with the town properly, since it wasn't in their system yet. And no, I don't know why that was not already done. To make things worse, Karen decided to file a lawsuit against me, claiming that I was stalking her and trying to disturb the peace of the neighborhood, that I wanted to look into windows and break into homes. Obviously totally unfounded claims, but this is America after all, the land of the lawsuits. I had a lot of free time on my hand and I was using it in order to dig some things up on Karen myself. Somebody that nasty must be hiding something, but she seemed so dumb, so I doubt she was hiding them well. What I found was a list of rules written out by the town that every home must comply with. They are not crazy like some HOA rules, but actual things regarding safety and other things. I didn't dare to go back to her house, but online maps can show me some pretty good images. I saw that her house was in violation of multiple violations she had and didn't seem to care about. Important things like making sure the walkway stones were secured so people couldn't trip and get hurt. Also having a functional garage door. Karen didn't, and hers was actually just missing. Along with some other minor things like outside lighting, and since she had a fence needing to make sure that it stayed in a good state. Hers was falling apart. I didn't do all of this for fun, but instead wanted to mark down all of these things and wait until we were going to mediation. A little like court, but with no judge, and trying to sort things out between the two of us with lawyers and a middleman that would make sure things did not get out of hand. I was asking for her to drop the lawsuit against me based on the fact that she made all of it up, that I only was there once and it was in order for me to get my property back. I also wanted her to remove her things from the inside of my house within a week and get rid of the padlock, or I would have it cut. Well, at this point I had my address updated and there was no argument about the house being mine anymore. She tried to refuse, but I took my folder showing her violations and slid it across the table. She looked at it and whispered a bunch with her lawyer before they spoke again. They asked if I had reported these things to the state, and I said that I hadn't, and decided that I was gonna give Karen a chance first so she could avoid the fines. Something a nice neighbor would do. When we walked out of the room, Karen had her lips squeezed even tighter than before in anger. The things were gonna be removed from my house, the charges against me dropped, and my lawyer fee for the mediation meeting paid for. The best part for me was the fact that I got to watch as Karen was forced to fix all of the violations. She knew that if she didn't, I could easily still report and get her fined for them. Some things I should have called the moment I won, but it takes time to come out and look for things. By the time she did, she would have fixed them already and not really gotten in any trouble. I didn't care because now she knew that I was not the type of person she should be messing with. I still heard her talk about me under her breath or with neighbors in a whisper that is all totally meant to be loud enough for me to hear, all of which talking about how I am poor and that she cannot believe they make houses that small, and bet that I didn't even have rooms to bathe properly. Even though she had been in there and seen that I have a room to do everything, I do really like my tiny house. I don't really have a yard, but there's a little bit of grass around the house, and I think I might plant flowers or something and just really make sure of every inch of space I have. Yes, I would like to see Karen try to get me arrested for something like that. Calling them on me already made her unlikable once people met me and instantly liked me better than her. I can see the bitterness in her eyes and love every second of it. The next one is titled, Am I the a-hole for buying my 5th property rather than help out my siblings? And by the way, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to subscribe because that would help me tremendously. So for context, even when I, 44 male, was a child, I was incredibly into owning property and designing houses. I work as an architect and I'm doing quite well for myself. I bought my first duplex here in Germany a long time ago where I rent out both parts. Then I own 2 houses in Italy and 1 in Spain. 2 of them get rented out as holiday homes, while the last one I use for vacations and rent out a room to a friend of mine. So basically, I have a lot of passive income at the moment, but only after a lot of time and money investments and refurbishing of these houses. I rent in New York City at the moment as my job has made me move here temporarily. My brother, 48 male, does have an apartment. He has a family with 2 kids while my wife and I are childless. They are currently looking to purchase a house that fits all of them nicely. While they have found their dream house, it is out of budget for them. Meanwhile, my wife and I are about to buy our 5th house, this time in France. It's gonna be one of our largest purchases yet, significantly larger than anything else we have done. It is a great deal on the property, however, and ideally what my wife and I want to retire in. When having a family FaceTime with my siblings and parents, I brought it up. Initially very happy for me, my brother mentioned how he needs a larger home for his family and how I should give up on this opportunity to give him money for his house and spend the rest on refurbishing their new home. I just laughed and said flat out no. Edit, I thought this was a joke. Well, this was apparently the wrong move. My entire family turned against me and started berating me. After 10 minutes of them taking turns telling me to buy my brother a house, I said I would think about it and left. I'm a bit of a pushover, so after talking to my wife, we agreed we could wait and buy their house and rent it out to them at no profit. Well, apparently this was insulting to him, having his younger brother be his landlord, and my parents said I should just outright give him the money we have been saving. I told them to piss off and started moving forward with the paperwork on our house in France. After talking to my friends, they said I should put family first and it's not like we are struggling for money, so now I am confused. Am I the a-hole here? And yeah guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this one. Do you think OP is the a-hole for literally not buying his brother a house? And by the way, I would be really surprised if anyone thinks OP is the a-hole here. Edit. This edit is super late, but I want to clarify, my brother does have money for a 4-bedroom house, he is not broke, he just does not have enough money for his dream house. The dream house is approximately double as expensive. Update to the story, my wife and I discussed and thought you guys deserved an update after the clarity I received from my initial post. It feels therapeutic for me. It's been a bit of a wild month since then. We took in a lot of your advice regarding the situation, but it ended up even more chaotic than I expected. So shortly after the post and when the pandemic in NY got worse and worse, I ended up back in Spain. After having a conversation with my friend and this post, I decided I'd made the right choice. So we are moving forward with the house in France currently. Furthermore, we are deciding to sell the 2 Italian homes. We realized we haven't been there ourselves in a long time and it was only being rented out. This decision was twofold, couldn't get some of the remarks from last post out of my head, and we wanted some liquidity given the economy. We also decided to only list with local real estate companies, onto my brother though, who turned out to not be telling us the whole truth. A week after the post, his wife calls me asking to reconsider. It turns out there was a reason, but my brother did not want to tell me. So I told her either he tells me himself or I won't even consider anything. A week later he ends up calling and tells me everything. It turns out he had developed a bit of a gambling problem the last 2 years and has taken a noticeable percentage out of their savings gambling. Less than 40%, but more than 15% according to him. The dream house was now a lot further out of reach than it was meant to be. Apparently, he has been going to therapy for it for months, but the financial damage it did set them back far. My parents knew since the start, and I knew my brother was having marital problems a couple years ago, but I never asked why, as he and his wife were very secretive about details. And I think OP was talking about marriage problems here. Anyway, turns out this was the problem. Apparently my parents had told him to ask me, but asked too much from me, so when he rebutted with smaller ask, I would be more inclined to accept. Had an incredibly harsh conversation with my parents. They feel like I owe the family, and it's more their money than mine since they raised me. Well, that's a whole different problem. I told him about the post and he was mad at first, but understood my position after reading through it. After a pretty difficult conversation with him, I offered the rent at cost, and once he has built up his savings, we will sell him the house minus any rent he has paid over the time it takes. Some people mentioned this rent to own, he happily accepted. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Years ago, I worked as an assistant manager for a retail store in art supplies. My store was in a fairly affluent area and we got lots of bored housewives who would drop $500 because they wanted a hobby. So one year, the company offered a one-day only coupon for Black Friday. The store was swamped. Saturday was swamped, Sunday was swamped. I'm running a register and trying to get people through as rapidly as I can when she arrives. We will call her Debbie, D. Debbie, throwing 3 bags full of merchandise on my counter. I want to return all of this stuff and rebuy it. Me, okay, can I ask why? People sometimes did this because they had used the wrong payment method or something, but I needed to verify. D. I bought all of this stuff on Friday at store 1,500 miles away, and their tax rate is higher, so I want to return all of it and buy it here to pay lower taxes. And now hurry up, I've been driving all day and I'm tired. This is gonna be a pain on a very busy day over what comes out to about $2.50. I confirm with the other manager, who agrees that this is ridiculous, but we just need to do it. So I start her return, but the totals don't match up, so I have to call and talk to the on-call support rep. He tells me that I can only refund my state's tax and not the other amount. The solution is to manually adjust prices until the tax and totals match. As I'm doing this, Debbie is complaining about how she is tired from driving, I'm taking too long, her dog, her feet, her back, whatever. But eventually, I get everything balanced and process her return. Okay, the return has been processed. It's about time. You'd be done already if you weren't so stupid. Now I want to buy it all again. Q Malicious Compliance Part 1. The thing about art supplies is that they can be small and in multitudes, and that's what she had purchased. Individual pencils, brushes, pastels, sheets of paper, etc. Sure thing, ma'am, but I want to be absolutely certain that I ring everything up right, since I'm dumb, you know? So, with a sweet smile, I take everything out of the bags and ring them up one by one again. Of course, some stuff does not scan, so it has to be looked up. As I go along, she's getting more and more agitated, the insults get more frequent, and now everyone in the other lines are glaring at her. At last, everything is rung up, and I give her the total. Q Malicious Compliance Part 2. Remember that coupon from the beginning of the story? Well, the code has been pulled from the system, so her new total with the reduced tax rate is significantly higher than the old one. Debbie loses it and starts screeching. It's not even words at this point, only noise. Sorry ma'am, but it looks like you used our exclusive coupon on Friday. Unfortunately, that coupon is no longer valid. Your new total will be X amount of total. She kept screaming but eventually paid, snatched her items and left. It was a good day to be retail. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you've ever worked in retail and had to deal with Karens like this, then please feel free to share your own story either in the comments or on r/Ripe Stories on Reddit, where you can post full-length stories without issues. Either way, the next story is titled Complying with Everything. Years ago, I was a cook at a well-known fast casual restaurant known for their large burritos and charging extra for guacamole. I worked hard because the place was very understaffed given the number of customers that came in. Management was understanding when we had to cut corners to make sure people didn't wait for food. One of the rules we had to follow before cooking the rice was to rinse the raw rice 3 times until the water runs clear. Vague? I know. How clear is clear? What if after 3 rinses the water is not clear? 3 times and runs clear, or 3 times or runs clear? Who knows? I didn't ask. Most of the time we would give the rice 1 or 2 rinses before throwing it into the cooker. Never had any problems with customers complaining about it, and we never ran out of rice. Since there were never any problems, management didn't care. Everyone was happy, that is, until one day Miss Manager decides it's time to enforce every single rule exactly. Not sure why. To get to the position she was in, she knew how to do all the individual tasks in the kitchen, so she knew the rules. However, she did not know how to conduct the symphony of the dozens of simultaneous tasks at the speed and accuracy required to keep customers moving and to never burn anything. I, on the other hand, did. She did not know which corners were okay to cut and which ones were not. But I did, as I was getting ready for the busy shift, but the kitchen was not in busy mode yet. So here I am, rinsing rice, and Miss Manager approaches me. Make sure to rinse the rice until the water runs clear. I look at her and respond, I always do. She knew I was lying, but she knew why. She knew that it would take longer to make the rice, but I was the only person who could make sure that rice never runs out. Her life would be hell if we ran out of rice. She had a chance to let it go. She didn't though, so Mr. Cook, I know you don't follow that rule. Keep rinsing the rice until the water runs clear, and before you put this rice on the cooker, come find me and show me that it runs clear. I looked at her with a straight face and replied, keep rinsing the rice until the water runs clear? Got it. I begin. I fill the pot of rice with water, agitate the rice, pull out the perforated part of the pot and dump out all of the cloudy water. After 3 times the water still resembles water skim milk, I look up and she is watching me. She asks, does that water look clear to you? It was a rhetorical question. I see how it is. I start rinsing again. Satisfied, she walks away. I continue repeating the process. A while goes by, and yes, I'm counting the number of times. The long grains of rice are breaking apart, and the entire pot is turning into a strange mushy mixture of white rice. Given the time I'm taking on this dumb task, everything else that needs to get started in the kitchen is falling behind. Finally, Miss Manager appears in the kitchen again. You're still rinsing rice? The timing was perfect. I dump out the water in front of her and ask her, does that water look clear to you? As I dump out the precursor to slightly watered horchata, she softly says, no. I step away from the sink. How many times do you think I've rinsed this rice? I ask. 7, she answers. No, 37. I wasn't joking. I have rinsed this rice 37 times and the water is not running clear to your satisfaction. Should I continue? She looks at the rice, knows it is unusable, that she has lost the fight. On one hand, she cannot tell me to keep cooking because the ground up rice was only a few rinses and I cook away from becoming grits. On the other hand, she cannot tell me to stop rinsing because then she would be in violation of the sacred rice rinsing commandment. Additionally, she cannot fire me, otherwise the store could not open. She scheduled me to work the entire day and she sure knows that she couldn't do what I do in the kitchen. Fine, she relents. Get back in there and make sure we are ready when it's time to open. I laughed to myself as I went back to work. I win. And yeah, ripe stars, I gotta say, having to work together with such a boss would make me absolutely crazy. Let me tell you, being self-employed is really a godsend. Anyway, the next one is a story from r/Am I the Jerk, and it is titled, Am I Really in the Wrong? Just recently, my husband, 31, was promoted to assistant manager of the warehouse. We both work on the ups of 50 hours a week. I am shift manager at a behavioral disorders facility. Both jobs are very hands-on and strenuous. Since his promotion, he has developed an entirely different attitude. Extremely entitled and, dare I say, rude as all F. He's always boasting and bragging. This has been going on for 3 weeks. So, some examples are as followed. On his days off, he wants the house to be radio silent. If our 4-year-old wants to play, he tells her to stick to her bedroom because he needs peace and quiet after working so hard. If I make our daughter lunch, he will immediately say, "Where's mine?" He asks me to grab him things damn near constant all hours of the night. He expects nightly back rubs, but if I ask, he would scoff at me and say, "I worked all day," even if I had as well. He expects meals that he likes made every night, regardless if me or our daughter like the meal or not. He also now acts like he has full say over the money because he makes more. Last night was the tip of the iceberg for me. Before this, I let a lot of crap slide because it was a recent promotion and hell, he is excited, so I get it. But last night around like 11 PM, I was in bed scrolling through my phone and he comes into the bedroom, lays down and says, "Babe, you should go make me some ice cream. I want the chocolate drizzle on it. Oh, and don't forget the cashews." And then he starts scrolling through his phone. I ignore it because I feel at this point I was gonna snap. He then shook my leg and said, "Did you hear me?" So I responded with, "Yeah, I did hear you, and no, go make it yourself. You are literally just out there. Your sense of entitlement is way out of line. Do something for yourself." He became offended and instantly like effing clockwork said, "But I worked all day." So I snapped back with, "Yeah, I did too. In fact, I worked 12 hours to your 8. Like I said, do crap for yourself." He is now saying that he is not acting entitled and that I was just taking my bad day out on him and that everything I said makes him feel unappreciated. Am I the jerk here? Did I push it too far? And ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that OP was the a-hole or not? And personally, I would say OP is definitely not the a-hole. Her husband acts mega entitled and he seems to have no empathy for her as well, because clearly she is just working as hard as him. Anyway, a comment on Reddit said, "Not the a-hole, someone needs to knock your husband off his high horse. You two need to have a serious talk at home that you're equals and he is not the boss. Hell, if he's treating employees like this, then things won't go well at work either. Husband and I work an equal amount of hours, so we split the chores and take turns cooking. It sounds like he needs to pitch in too." Comment number 2, not the a-hole, and if that's how your husband is acting at work, his stint as an assistant manager will be a short-lived one. For the sake of his career, he needs to learn the difference between being a boss and being a leader. And before we end the video, we will of course read a story from r/Petty Revenge. It is titled, "Steal My Deposit? Okay then." So in a wildly poetic turn of justice, I once found a binder/organizer sitting in a coffee shop bathroom. I looked inside to see if I could find the owner info to return it, and lo and behold, it belonged to a local builder/developer who had screwed me out of a refundable lot deposit about 1 year before. My wife at the time and I were in the early stages of a divorce, and it would have been really helpful to have this money back. Well, he had reassured us it was refundable, but he and his office manager basically said, F off, when we contacted them to get it back. It was not feasible to sue us as lawyer fees would have been substantial. I did ask my family law attorney though. So this guy's entire life, everything, contacts, receipts, banking, calendar, even personal documents were in that massive organizer. So guess what I did? I tossed it in the dumpster out back as I left. And yeah guys, thank you for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.